We are now wrapping up in week 6. By the end of this week, we will have delivered more than 2,000 meals to essential workers.
It's awesome to be able to partner up with WSLS.
You know, it's nice to know that Roanoke is thinking of us.
Thank you, guys.
Getting these larger orders like this, it means a lot.
To be able to show appreciation from WSLS lets us know that we're important too.
You can't see me smile with my face mask on, but hopefully my eyes say it.
Thank you so much to everybody out there.
I think it's wonderful that you all reached out to do this for different folks.
They want to say thank you for everything that you guys have done.
It's really nice when somebody just says, hey, what you do matters.
Thank you, Subway. Thank you, Pedro. Thank you, people.
It's the day a local family has been waiting for all year. They will officially become homeowners as this year's Home for Good project comes to an end. 10 News anchors Brittany McGraw and John Carlin are live at the home on Mormon Avenue in Roanoke this afternoon as we get ready to dedicate the home and hand over the keys. John and Brittany, this is always such an exciting day.
Yes, this is an amazing and beautiful day that we get to dedicate this home here on Mormon Avenue. And what a journey it has been to get to this point. We have been in the midst of a pandemic. We have had to deal with some rainy days during the build schedule. However, we have successfully built this home, and we are so excited to celebrate with Habitat for Humanity and Courtney Warren and her family as we prepare to cut this ribbon and hand over the keys to this home.
I'll tell you what, it was said earlier today that every house Habitat builds is a miracle. And I hope everybody can hear me okay. I'm going to cheat with my mask just a little bit here. I've got my sexy new Habitat mask on, but it's just a little bit tight. But, you know, this house couldn't happen, of course, without all the volunteers that it takes. Brittany mentioned the build and working through the rainy weather, whatever it took. But we're standing here on the front porch, and this is going to happen today. So, and Channel 10 is just so pleased and proud to have been able to be a part of this in any way that we could to help make it happen. So along with the volunteers and the community support, and of course, Habitat for Humanity, they're the ones that make this system all work, and it's house after house after house, and this is the 6th time that we've been able to be a part of your amazing success. So at this time, we'd like to have Karen Mason step forward and say a couple of words about how this all happened and the dedication, and then we'll cut the ribbon in just a moment. All right, so Daria, you have something that everybody wants to see right here, and that's the keys to this new house. And Daria, by the way, I don't know if you want to say anything, but you were in charge of this whole build, is that right?
Correct.
So you were running all the crews and keeping everybody in line who's out here working?
Oh yeah, and I can say without a doubt, Courtney, you have earned, as they said before, every single inch of this house. It's been such a pleasure to work with you. I'm so proud to hand you these keys and to say welcome home.
Thank you.
Wow! There we go. That is what it's all about. So, and I understand you're moving in today.
Yes.
Yes, so she's got a truck loaded. Now she has the keys. She's got her stuff. She's moving out of her sister's basement, people, into this beautiful new home. All right, the time is here. Huh?
Yes.
Shall we cut the ribbon?
Yes.
All right, let's.
Come on.
All right, Courtney, let's get your family up there with you, and I'm going to count down.
We have to count down.
Brittany, you want to help me with this?
Yes.
I think we'll start at 3. Here we go. In 3, 2, 1. Yay! All right.
Courtney, once again, we want to say a big congratulations to you and your family. And of course, thank you to everyone who has been out here in support of Courtney, her work colleagues, our generous sponsors, volunteers, everyone who has put in the work to make this happen.
Well, good evening. We are working for you to learn if Liberty University President Jerry Falwell Jr. is leaving the university that his father founded. And I can tell you that within the last minute, we have just received an update from a statement finally from the university.
Right now, he is on an indefinite leave of absence, but in the past few hours, there have been a series of conflicting reports about whether he will resign. All of this after a bombshell report of an affair and alleged blackmail.
10 News reporter Shane Dwyer is live tonight at Liberty University.
Shane, we know we just got information from Liberty University about what happens next. So what can you tell us at this point?
Yeah, well, Brittany and John, we have been trying to get this information from both Falwell Jr. and Liberty, top Liberty University officials all night long. Now, just within the last few minutes, as you said, we received that statement from Liberty University. I want to go ahead and just read it to you because we're actually in the process of digesting this information right as we bring it to you. It says that on the first day of classes, Liberty University's fall term, Jerry Falwell Jr. agreed to resign as its president and from the board of directors. But following media reports about the resignation, he withdrew it. The executive committee's board of trustees asked Falwell to go on an indefinite leave of absence on August 7th, earlier this month, to which he agreed. Since that time, additional matters came to light which made it clear that it would not be in the best interest of the university for him to return from leave and serve as president. The executive committee met this morning and a conference call gathering of the full board was planned for tomorrow. Now, Falwell responded by agreeing to resign immediately as president of Liberty University today, but then instructed his attorneys to not tender the letter for immediate resignation. The executive committee will go forward with its meeting in the morning, followed by the full board tomorrow morning. Acting President Jerry Prevost said, "I call upon the university community and supporters to be in prayer for the university and for all its leadership, past, present, and future, as we walk with the Lord through this stormy time of transition." Now, of course, again, this coming just in the last few minutes following a day's worth of controversy starting last night, when the Washington Examiner launched what's now being called a preemptive strike. Jerry Falwell Jr. offering an op-ed, admitting to what he says was an affair that his wife Becky Falwell had with an unnamed person at that point. He then said that that unnamed person was trying to extort the Falwell family. Then this morning, Reuters announcing their story with the pool boy from their Miami hostile investment, saying that he was the man involved in this. He was not trying to extort the Falwells, and that it was a consensual affair. We're still working to learn more information at this point, but again, the latest from Liberty University. We'll have more on this tomorrow morning on Virginia Today. Live in Lynchburg, Shane Dwyer, 10 News, working for you.
All right, thank you, Shane. So it is a tangled mess, as it were, and we'll continue to try and unravel.
30 children. We shared their faces and stories, hoping to find them safe and loving homes. Some are heartbreaking.
Why do you want a family?
I'm tired of seeing people having a family and not me.
Many of you called about Grayson after seeing that, but others called just wanting information about fostering or adopting one of the more than 700 children who can be adopted in Virginia.
This has been the most fruitful campaign that we've done since we started working with you guys on the 30 Days of Hope campaign.
120 inquiries from all over this region. Emily Moore is a regional recruiter for DePaul Community Resources and says the people calling were very diverse, which is important because the children are diverse too.
We had young families that were calling that were thinking about, maybe starting their own family, but they weren't inquiring about the traditional infants and toddlers like we typically see. We saw the empty nesters who maybe just aren't done parenting.
Many people reached out offering to buy Christmas presents or mentor teens who were interested in construction. For more, this is encouraging since the need is so great right now.
Our numbers have been down for the most part since the beginning of the pandemic. I think folks just have so many other things going on. We are very thankful for WSLS 10 giving us this platform and this opportunity to talk about the need in our community. You guys have such a reach across our Commonwealth, and we are just really thankful that you guys have helped make this a successful, growing campaign.
Even with the large turnout, the work continues.
We still will have a need for foster parents through next November and beyond. And so our hope is that this gets people asking questions. What does this look like in my community? How can I be a part of the solution?
Thank you for sharing these stories on social media. That's one way you can help if you can't take a kid into your home. If you're still interested in fostering or adopting, head to WSLS.com and click on 30 Days of Hope. Jenna Zibton, 10 News, working for you.
Levels in Roanoke are starting to go down tonight. 10 News reporter Lindsay Kennett is live watching all that. Lindsay, we understand that there were actually several water rescues today, so tell us what things look like now.
It's been a very busy day here in Roanoke for first responders, especially in southeast Roanoke. Just take a look. The Roanoke River is completely flooded. You can barely see the greenway, the road here. It's all submerged. Now, I'm on Bennington Street southeast, and I want to give you a look at one driver who did not follow the rules. This car, the driver drove around the barricades and got stuck and had to call 911 for help. So I want to give you a look at that rescue. This is video from Roanoke Fire EMS this morning. You can see crews wading out in the water with dry suits and life jackets on to rescue that driver who got stuck, and I am told that the driver is okay. Roanoke Fire EMS tells me that this is actually the same spot where another car got stranded in the flooding back in May. I talked with one man who lives nearby, and he came out to check out the flooding. Here's what he had to say.
Stop thinking you can go through this water, because water does not play at all. This is, you got to be smarter than that. And every time people they just want to go through it. I don't know why.
Coming up tonight at 6, I'll tell you about several road closures in the area and what fire officials say you need to avoid if you're driving on the roads. Reporting live in Roanoke, I'm Lindsay Kennett, 10 News, working for you.
United Nations War Council. President Roosevelt and Prime Minister Churchill at the White House meet allied leaders to map the strategy of the war.
A strategy that would send more than 16 million U.S. troops into conflict during the course of World War II.
A spectacular display of America's ever-growing armed might.
The war touched every American in some way, and for the Atkins family in Giles County, it was more ways than one. 5 brothers were all called into service in World War II: Harry, June, John, Curtis, and David Atkins. The war took these then small-town Giles County boys all over the world. And in 1951, the youngest brother, Billy, would serve in the Korean War. Today, they're known as the Maybrook Men. The only 2 of the brothers still living, 96-year-old John and 100-year-old June, told me their war stories.
I was 19 years old when I was in the Army. Stayed 3 years. 22 months overseas.
June was the first to be drafted in 1942.
I was in Italy, France, Algiers, North Africa, Casablanca. I was all over Europe.
John was drafted soon after, just a young man when this picture was taken.
About 20.
He chartered a boat to France.
We could put up a hospital, and didn't finish because Germany surrendered.
The war then took him through the Mediterranean Sea, the Panama Canal, the Philippines, and to Japan.
That's my journey.
Their memories are still vivid, especially of how their mom worried for all of her boys.
I guess you worry over us. Bound to, all them boys over there. You don't know what time you'll get a telegram. One got killed.
3 of the brothers were wounded in action, but by some miracle, they all returned home. Their youngest, Billy, also came home to Giles after the Korean War. The community still honors the service given by this band of brothers. And no matter how many decades have passed, it's not forgotten.
Virtual visits have become the norm in senior housing facilities since COVID-19 swept across the nation. A Roanoke nursing home bucked that trend and found a way for residents and visitors to see and even feel each other. 10 News reporter Taj Simmons tells us how it's already led to some priceless moments.
Horace and Doris Light have been married for 60 years, but they haven't seen each other in 4 months.
She and I did everything together, going to church, to going out to eat, to being family. We were always together.
The Lights and their daughter Diane got to shine together again.
Hey, Mom.
Inside this gazebo at the Brandon Oaks Nursing and Rehabilitation Center, the spark between the two ignited when Horace took Doris by the hand.
I do too.
This was like being on our first date. Just don't realize when you're apart like that, that's this much, that how much you missed the other person.
Doris lives at Brandon Oaks, which has kept visitors at a distance until now.
Yeah, all kinds of people that love you.
Executive Director Esteban Duran-Ballen was determined to find a way for residents to fully embrace their families while protected from COVID-19.
I think it takes a toll on all of us. We all need to be near each other and be able to touch each other, touch our loved ones.
Both sides are protected by plexiglass, but they can talk without masks and, thanks to these gloves, do more than just look at each other.
It has been incredibly special to see them reunite, touch each other, hug each other.
Remember what happened at the Roanoke for that time?
Her memory's not great right now, just that touch that hopefully she'll, that'll bring back a memory at least.
A smile speaks volumes in the language of love, but a touch, especially now, is priceless.
It's so good to come and see your loved one and be a part of their life again, at least for a few minutes.
Love you, sweetheart. You be good.
In Roanoke.
We'll be back and checking on you.
Taj Simmons, 10 News, working for you.
Roanoke City and Allegheny Health District saw 168 new infections. 10 News reporter Jessica Jewell is live tonight to explain how the health department is dealing with this surge. Jessica?
John, we are continuing to see those cases rise, and the local health director warns we're just getting ready to enter the most challenging period of this pandemic. Because of that, local health departments are changing the way they handle contact tracing. It's no longer solely up to VDH. With what they call substantial levels of community transmission, the health department will now be prioritizing contact tracing efforts for key populations. That includes people who are high risk, those diagnosed in the past 6 days and their household contacts, people living, working in, or visiting congregate living facilities, and people involved in known clusters or outbreaks. Our local health director says it's now critical for the community to step up.
Because of our strapped resources, because of the extent of activity in the community, we cannot get to everybody in the time frame that is best for our community, and so we need the community support. We need the community telling each other if they test positive.
Despite new CDC guidance saying quarantining may only be necessary for 10 days, VDH is still recommending the full 14 days. We're also getting a better idea of how our local health department is preparing for a vaccine. We'll tell you when you can expect mass clinics coming up tonight on 10 News at 6. Live in Roanoke, I'm Jessica Jewell, 10 News, working for you.
Protests are still happening in our area right now, too. Police are monitoring the streets after protesters made their way to several locations, including Target and Walmart, which ended up closing early as a precaution. 10 News reporter Shane Dwyer joins us live now from downtown where demonstrators are. Shane, what are you seeing there?
Jessica, what we're seeing right now is the demonstrators that started at Valley View Walmart making their way now back down toward downtown. You can see the officers across the street. At this point, they are allowing the people to march, and they are attempting to protect the police department. Again, you can see they're standing there in the parking lot. The police department is right over there. This building, if we pan over to the right, you can see the windows right there. That is the Roanoke City Police Department. And you can see the police officers holding a line here, trying to keep people from getting any closer to the police department. Now let's go ahead and take a look at some of the video that we shot earlier today. This started at Walmart. We were told by Roanoke Mayor Sherman Lee that people had busted out some windows at the Valley View Walmart, and that is when this all began. Now I want to make this very clear. You'll hear about it. You got a protest that started earlier today, this afternoon. These are different folks than what we're seeing out here right now. They went from Walmart to Target because they got kicked out of the Walmart. Then they went to Target. They went back and forth with police for a few minutes. A couple people got pepper sprayed, and then they gave their notice saying, hey, 5 minutes, y'all got to go, or we're going to take the next action. So then they went to Burlington Coat Factory. The exact same thing. Really just a cat and mouse game this evening between a number of agencies across the valley, pretty much every agency in the Roanoke Valley represented out here tonight, and the protesters. From there, then they went to Sheets on 460, and they were there for probably about another half hour doing the exact same thing, just back and forth, protesters getting in police officers' faces, taunting them, trying to get them to do something. And now, at this point, let's go ahead and listen to Mayor Sherman Lee. This is what he had to say his concerns are for the rest of the evening.
Because it is nighttime, and people oftentimes, when they want to do something, wrong, they'll do it and they'll go through the means to do it. And we just got to stay vigilant. And we're going to stay vigilant. We're going to stay vigilant tonight, watch over everything. We're getting good support from law enforcement all the way around. And so our emphasis will be on making sure we keep people safe and making sure we protect the property here in the city.
Now, again, you just heard from Roanoke Mayor Sherman Lee. He says he is seriously concerned about possible bodily injury, serious bodily injury, death, or severe violence tonight. So they are keeping a very close eye on this. But again, at this point, protesters making their way back toward downtown, right in front of the courthouse right now. We'll check in with you toward the end of the show in about 25 minutes and let you know where they are at that point. Live in Roanoke, Shane Dwyer, 10 News, working for you.
Well, John and Megan, the Valley View employees I spoke with said the mall quickly turned chaotic after the shots were fired. They described it as the scariest situation they have ever experienced. A sea of first responders are still here investigating, but the people inside are going to remember this night for all of the wrong reasons.
Roanoke's largest shopping center became a crime scene Saturday night. A person was shot inside of Valley View Mall at around 7 o'clock. A terrifying scene for employees such as Brandy Jarvis.
Just pop, pop, pop. And that's when I think everybody realized it was actually a gun and there was a shooting. People started running in the store. We tried to rush as many customers in the back as we could.
And Molly Cummings.
I have worked in this mall in many different stores for 5 years now, and I have never in my life been this scared.
As law enforcement agencies from all across the area converged on Valley View, Police Chief Sam Roman outlined what happened within.
There was some kind of argument in the mall between two different groups of people, and during that incident, shots were fired, resulting in one injury.
Cummings says it was already a scary day in the mall before the shots went off.
Throughout the day, the crowd was rowdy. It was rowdy all day long, and we saw security guards, we saw a few police officers in here trying to just dial people down.
As officers continued to investigate, those who were inside tried their best to comprehend what they witnessed.
Pure terror, just not knowing what was going on, not knowing if somebody was hurt, not knowing if maybe, I don't know, it was horrible.
Most of the employees have been out of the mall for hours, but Chief Roman said a few were still sheltered in place when he last updated the media about 2 hours ago. Now, as far as the situation here, you can see the flashing lights. There's still a lot of first responders here from as far away as Botetourt County. Still a very, very busy scene here tonight.
Taj, we got a little bit of a feel for it, but since you were there shortly after this happened, what was the mood when you first arrived, some of those people you talked to?
I mean, the word I can use to describe it is surreal. People process shock in different ways, and that was really on full display out in the parking lot. Some people were very emotional. Some people were running back to their cars. Some people seemed like they went through it like it was any other day. But it is clearly a very, very unusual night here at View, and people are just trying to figure out what happened.
Yeah, and we understand that the law enforcement presence is growing. Talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely. I mentioned Botetourt County just a moment ago. They actually showed up about an hour ago. So even though most people are outside of the mall, you know, the customers, the employees that were in here when this incident happened, the law enforcement presence is still growing. And we just saw a few more SWAT teams go inside a moment ago. So this is still a very busy scene. A lot of work left to be done here at Valley View, and just a lot to process for both the people who were inside and the people who are trying to figure out what happened here.
Firefighters in this old footage are practicing, learning to fight flames in one of the hundreds of homes condemned by the city to make way for urban renewal, the process of creating commercial space near downtowns across America, including Roanoke.
I think that this plan, as approved, will be allowed to develop this property to its highest and best use.
But the best use was not poor, mostly black neighborhoods. They produced little tax revenue for the city, and many felt rundown houses made a poor welcome mat for visitors. In some cases, houses were moved. In Roanoke, an entire cemetery with more than 1,000 bodies was moved. And most often, the city, using eminent domain, forced homeowners to sell, leveling entire neighborhoods.
Urban renewal just came in with a sledgehammer.
Reginald Sharif grew up in Roanoke and later researched the impact of Roanoke's urban renewal projects.
So who are the losers? The losers are the residents.
Sharif says the city paid under market value for the homes, making it difficult and expensive for people to move to new ones.
Casey, we understood you just sold your house. What did you get for it?
$10,675.
Was that what you asked for?
No, we asked $11,000.
Well, do you consider that a fair price?
I think so.
Others were even more direct with their displeasure.
We have been given a dirty deal. I hope that the people of Roanoke, if they come up with any new plans, that will reject their bid for any new cleaning up in the city of Roanoke.
Claudia Whitworth, at 93 years old, still publishes the African-American paper, the Roanoke Tribune. But years ago, the paper's headquarters were bulldozed without notice.
My phone rang at 8 o'clock next morning and said, "Do you know they bulldozing the Tribune?" And I went flying down there. Everything was laying across the side. The whole building was just, there was no building at all. I lost everything.
Today, we see the Roanoke Civic Center, the main post office, Interstate 581, and even the expanded Coca-Cola plant. But we don't see the pent-up frustration created when those projects were undertaken.
And even today, the people in those communities affected are still angry. I mean, they are really, really angry.
Projects that are still burned into people's memories.
It's just like you're dead and looking at a nightmare.
Burning embers that flared up brightly in 2020, kindled by the death of George Floyd.
Justice for George Floyd!
And a reborn push for equality. In Roanoke, John Carlin, 10 News, working for you.
What do we want? Change! When do we want it? Now!
These mirror images in the fight for racial equality and justice here in Southwest Virginia.
No justice! No peace!
Are separated by more than 50 years.
We had a Band-Aid on the situation. Everybody was wanting to put it hush-hush. But now the Band-Aid's off, and we are profusely bleeding in America.
But these images paint a clear picture of where we've been.
What do you think of this idea of integration? I don't like it.
Where we stand today.
Hands up! Don't shoot! Hands up! Don't shoot!
And why the fight is far from over.
Black people aren't asking for revenge, we're asking for equality.
The COVID-19 crisis and its disproportionate impact on people of color.
Reasons for these disparities and inequities flow from the existing social inequities in our society.
Gave weight to racial unrest across the country and here at home. Sparked by the deaths of Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and George Floyd.
It's time for us to stand up in George's name and say, get your knee off our necks.
Now, as we reckon with reflections of our past, our present, and look to our future.
All lives matter, but all lives can't continue to matter until Black lives start to matter.
Many want to know when the American ideal of equality will become a reality for all.
As we look with 2020 focus at the push for equality. Good evening and thanks for joining us as we stand in the shadow of the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial in Roanoke. Right now, so many people are wondering if we'll ever achieve his dream of a nation where people are judged by the content of their character and not the color of their skin.
And so for the next hour, we'll be exploring that question, and we'll show you what's happening across Southwest Virginia to work to fulfill King's vision and create equality for all. Now, since May, people from across the area have gathered for protests and marches in support of racial justice that some found their way right here to this memorial.
But some of the more tense moments of the fight were in Lynchburg, which is where 10 News anchor McKinley Strother is standing by to share some of our stories tonight. But to better understand the present, it's important to first take a look at the past. In the summer of '63, the headlines tell the story. of the fight for civil rights across the country and here at home.
We were marching for desegregation of lunch counters, theaters, just everything was segregated.
A then 16-year-old Thurman Eccles Jr. would find himself in the middle of that fight for equality and change on June 10th, 1963 in Danville.
That's when they put fire hoses and knocked down people.
It was a day that later became known as Bloody Monday, described as the most violent day in the civil rights movement in Virginia.
How June 10th really got the name Bloody Monday was the night of June 10th. That's when they marched from Bible Way on Grant Street over to here, and that's when people were beaten up.
Police and deputized city workers arrested 60 people and injured at least 47. Eccles says he was the first protester arrested.
That's where we went to jail, over here.
And says he can see the similarities between the fight then and now.
If anybody thinks that we have arrived, they're mistaken. We still made a lot of progress, but there's a lot of progress needs to be made.
Historians will tell you to understand the present struggle, we must look to the past and finally reckon with what's been described as America's original sin, slavery.
If we see America, we see remnants of slavery. There is no America as we know it without slavery. It's basically that simple.
Dr. Warnie Reed, director of the Race and Social Policy Research Center at Virginia Tech, says the notion that came with it, that black people were inferior to white people, touched just about every aspect of society.
So virtually all of the institutions in America, I shouldn't say all, almost all, were built by slaves and the result of slavery.
Even after the abolition of slavery following the Civil War, black codes, which were laws that limited the freedom of African Americans, voter suppression, and the birth of Jim Crow laws and segregation paved the way for the continued legal oppression of black Americans.
With the redemption, with the end of Reconstruction in the 1880s and 1890s, systems were built to reinstate white supremacy, and those systems carried into the 20th century.
People across Southwest and Central Virginia fought back against those systems. This protest in Lynchburg against segregated food service at the Woolworth store. Marchers lined Main Street in Farmville in July of '63 with the message, "Integration now, not later." And demonstrators took to the streets of downtown Roanoke in July of '68 to protest after 2 black women were denied educational opportunities. Now, there is a growing push to examine how America's history, from slavery to segregation, impacts the country to this day through systemic racism.
Looking at how, because of people's racist ideas that come from positions of power, how they keep people based solely on skin color, how they keep them in places of oppression, how they're denied access to proper health care, proper mental health care, how they're giving inadequate education based on a zip code, which is in our country a lot of times based on skin color and race.
And as this renewed call for racial justice and equality rings clear,
The late Dr. King once said, the time to do right is now.
Reverend Eccles says it's important to recognize where we've been.
We want our children, grandchildren, and other generations to know just what happened in Danville.
To pave the way for a future in which all are truly treated equally.
Black Lives Matter!
Reverend Eccles wrote the proposal to get the Bloody Monday historic marker erected in Danville. It was dedicated in 2007.
3 mothers having a candid conversation about race on a hot summer day, far from the outrage seen in cities from coast to coast. But their own reality is disheartening too, dealing with the everyday challenges of raising black children in Central Virginia.
I logged on to Amazon.com and the words Black Lives Matter were on my screen. And I just started crying. Those words were just like, yeah, this is a cause I'm gonna get behind now. But Those words have cost so much in our life as a family. I could never have uttered those words in my previous circles.
Amy's 7-year-old son, Jameson, needed a haircut one day. Nicole sent her to Brittany, who's a barber.
You wanted a style. Yeah. Like, you were like, I need, because my, I remember that happening.
I needed y'all to help me there.
We sat down at Miller Park to talk about what it's been like to parent in the current racial climate.
We aren't black. We don't have the experience to hand him of being black. And so the way that we have looked at it is Mark and I just have put ourselves in the positions of being learners. So we have children's books about, you know, the shades of us. And so we would talk about different cultures and ethnicities.
The Corbettes are unique. Amy and Mark have an adopted white daughter, Caroline, who is living with alopecia, and a black and Haitian son, Jameson.
There's just a lot of misperceptions about being a multi-ethnic family.
How do you change that misperception? If those people are vocal about it, what do you say to them to help change that?
It's funny because most people are not vocal about it, and I would almost prefer that people would have the conversations. I think conversations need to happen more.
More conversations, the mothers say, should start at home. Brittany has been a widow for 3 years and is raising 2 children, 10-year-old Amarie and 9-year-old Kylon Jr. Early on, she found herself having a conversation with her daughter that caught her off guard.
And she tells me, she says, Mom, she says, I don't want to be brown anymore. I want to be white like Caitlin. And it was devastating to hear because I never thought that I would encounter this conversation, first of all, at the age of 3. And I tried so hard to make her see that brown was beautiful. And she was like, well, you know, brown is nasty, you know, because brown is associated with the dirt on the ground. And then also I was able to have an awesome conversation with that mom about how are these discussions about diversity held in her own household. And so I think it was, if it could have happened to anybody, it was a good opportunity for us because we were able to implement things within the classroom. And I was able to realize that I needed to be a voice to my daughter about, you know, that her black was beautiful.
Nicole is married to a white man and has 4 biracial children, Tristan, Camden, Ella, and Audrey. The first time her kids noticed their differences was when Camden realized he looked more white than his siblings.
We responded with, yes, we are each different colors, but we're all beautiful.
With all the protests and calls for racial equality and change, Nicole's husband, Danny, a principal in Lynchburg City Schools, wrote an emotional open letter titled, "To My Heartbeats."
Camden, the paint used by God puts a large responsibility on you to understand how your actions could affect your brothers and sisters. You need to know that you may have to run in the heat of the day because it's more dangerous for your brother to run with you at night or your sisters.
It's someone else coming from the outside. It was both emotional to me that he had to even say that to my children, to our children, but it was also, it registered in my heart so much because it was like, wow, you get it. You get it. But then to see how some people were like, why would you even say that to your kids? I'm like, you're being to me, and I know this might be harsh, it's negligent if you don't. My kids can feel the climate, you know, people coming around and talking, you know, they're hearing these discussions. And I remember my son asked me, he said, what is happening? What's happening? And so I had to sit them both down and say, okay, this is what's happening. Someone died, someone that didn't deserve to die. And, you know, and so again, you know, and so there were some bad people that hurt him, and they were police officers that hurt him. And it doesn't mean all police officers are bad.
Live from WSLS, this is 10 News at 6, working for you.
Urgent flooding today as the National Guard rescues people from the Ramada Inn in Roanoke.
It's just way beyond comprehension.
The rain has turned city roads into rivers, caused mudslides throughout the region. and pushed feet of rushing water over the dam at Carvin's Cove for the first time in decades.
So we're dealing with something very different.
We're still a few hours away from the Roanoke and New Rivers cresting, and we're keeping a close eye on those further south as we go into tomorrow.
Tonight, we have live team coverage across the region following the damage after nearly a week of rain. And good evening. Relentless rain reaches day 4 now, and it now leads to significant flooding.
Both the Roanoke and New Rivers are now expected to reach major flood levels, and we've seen major damage from both.
Chief Meteorologist Jeff Hanowich begins our coverage tonight. So, Jeff, how long before the rivers crest, and how bad will it be?
So, one has crested. The New River at Galax has crested. The rest of these rivers are expected to crest anywhere between tonight and Saturday morning. I will show you the rainfall totals. The numbers are just staggering. Well over 9 inches already in Martinsville, over 8 inches in Roanoke, approaching 5.5 inches in Danville, over 5 inches in Blacksburg, and you're approaching 4.5 inches of rain out across Danville. The radar showing that the onshore flow of rain continues to move north-northwest from the Carolinas here into the Commonwealth. Some of the heaviest rain near Amherst, Nelson, and Appomattox counties. Also some bouts of heavy rain in Henry, Pittsylvania, and Franklin counties. You'll see the rain still in North Carolina. All of this rain you see here is moving to the north and will likely impact you folks in the New River Valley and also south side areas as we head throughout the course of the evening. I will tell you the 2 rivers that are of most concern at this very minute: the New River at Radford, current level 20.3 feet. The major flood stage is 20 feet, expected to crest at 21 feet. And also the Roanoke River at Roanoke. Right now, current level 15.9 feet, expected to crest anywhere between 16 and 16.4 feet, either this evening or a little bit beyond midnight tonight. Lindsay, John, back to you.
Our Sky 10 drone was able to get a bird's eye view of some of the highest flooding along the Roanoke River. This is in the Wasena area, and just down the road from this is where we find 10 News reporter Coulter Anstad. He's live at the Ramada Inn on Franklin Road. So, Coulter, 5 o'clock, the National Guard was called in to evacuate people there. Is everyone out okay, and are they safe?
Well, everyone is getting out okay, and they are safe right now. You mentioned the National Guard. I'll step out of the way and show you. That's happening right now here behind me. This has been going on for about 2 hours now. The National Guard is using these trucks to take people from the backside of the hotel out here to the front and load them onto city buses to be taken to other hotels here in the city. This is not the only evacuation, though, that has been happening here in the city. Overnight, 13 homes near Spring Lake were evacuated because the city was concerned the Spring Lake Dam could fail. Since then, according to the city, the dam has been holding, so there is no threat that the dam could break at this point. As the waters continue to rise throughout the city, 60 structures in the southern part of the city were also evacuated out of a precaution. City officials say the evacuations, though, are not common.
The evacuations that we've done have been done out of abundance of caution. However, we've also had water touching some of the doorsteps of these homes where we've made these evacuations. So, like I said, we're monitoring very closely. We are in close contact with the National Weather Service to make sure we do things right and keep everybody safe.
Several of the people being housed here at the hotel were being housed here by local nonprofits. Those nonprofits are taking care of the housing for those organizations. The Red Cross is stepping in to help anyone else. Live in Roanoke, Coulter Anstad, 10 News, working for you.
All right, thank you, Coulter. 10 News reporter Taj Simmons is further down the river by Roanoke Memorial Hospital, and you're looking at video from our Sky 10 drone of that area. So, Taj, how is this affecting the hospital?
It's certainly a challenging situation for them. The floodwater has made a little bit of a Lake Carilion outside the hospital's entrance, and the roads around us are all blockaded. Now, the flooding is still fervent, as you can see by this. The water is still rushing through the gates here, but despite all of this, the hospital is still carrying on as normal. The Roanoke River last measured in at a shade under 16 feet high here, which is the benchmark for a major flood. Despite the raging river, a Carilion spokesperson tells me it has stayed out of the hospital so far, which is very good to hear. They have placed sandbags near the entrance just in case the flooding becomes more intense. While the hospital itself is weathering the storm, everything around it is covered in floodwater. Now, what you're looking at right now is not actually the river itself. That's usually a park. That's the river runoff. The river itself is behind me right here. Now, this will probably not get much higher than this. As I said, it's about 15.9 today. It's expected to crest at a bit over 16 a little bit later on today, and then it's going to start going down to after that. But as you can see by the power of this is not something to get close to if you have no reason to. For now, reporting live in Roanoke, Taj Simmons, 10 News, working for you.
All right, thank you, Taj. Meanwhile, over in Giles County, this is what it looks like. This is by Mountain Lake and Doe Creek Road. You see the gully water right there, and what was once a functioning street now looks more like a river. This is a little bit better shot of it. 10 News reporter Lindsay Kennett has been working for you to track the flooding in the New River Valley throughout the day today. She is live now in Radford at Bissett Park. And Lindsay, the park is pretty much underwater, isn't it?
John, it is completely underwater. Even though the rain has let up a little bit today, the floodwaters have steadily risen. Behind me, these backyards earlier today, you could see grass. Now it is submerged. And over to my left, you can't even see the street anymore that leads to the park. I also want to give you a look back at those signs. We showed you that earlier, that massive tree branch that's stuck on some road signs. Now that sign that says Radford Clothing Store is partially submerged, and that's just in the past hour. The New River is set to reach its peak at a major flood stage around 21 feet high by tonight or early tomorrow, and right now it's already over 20. So the city blocked off the road on both ends of the park, and down the street the Radford Animal Shelter had to close because of the flooding. There's also been flooding and downed trees reported in Giles and in Blacksburg. Brooksfield Road, was closed because of the high water, but we did see some drivers disobeying the signs and driving through it. I talked with one man who's lived near Bissett Park for years. He says he's actually seen the conditions worse, but today is pretty bad.
I saw him put out the cones to block the road, and I knew the river was going to start flooding. And I came down here this morning and was walking up and down the street, and it wasn't too bad. And then you just watch it slowly come across the road, and it is where it is now. We don't need this much rain. We've had enough. It can stop anytime.
The New River isn't expected to fall back down below flood levels until late tomorrow night or even Saturday morning. And then with all the mud and debris left behind, that neighbor says that it could be a while before the city can get things cleaned up here. Reporting live in Radford, I'm Lindsay Kennett, 10 News working for you.
Over in Southside, the rising Dan River is also causing issues. This is along Riverside Drive in Henry County. Our team of meteorologists are on the road to bring you road conditions from across our region. Meteorologist Delaney Warden joins us now live in Danville. So, Delaney, what are you seeing out there?
You know, we've seen a wide variety just within the past 2 hours that we've been here. We've seen anything just from a light mist to at times heavier rain, and that's going to continue as we go throughout the next several hours and even into tomorrow as well. I do want to give you a live look from the Dan River here in Danville. Of course, yesterday it wasn't even at action stage, which of course means at least 18 feet. However, it is now currently over 22 feet. In fact, approaching 23, expected to reach about 28.5 feet by tomorrow morning in this region. Of course, we're watching this closely. We're going to use your favorite catchy phrase, turn around, don't drown. We've been seeing a lot of cars trying to drive through flooded roads. Make sure you're being careful out there. If you don't have to be driving around this evening, definitely take it slow, stay indoors, because this flooding is going to continue to increase even as we head over the next few hours. But for now, reporting live in Danville, I'm meteorologist Delaney Warden, 10 News working for you.
Thanks, Delaney. Stay up to date with whatever storms come our way. Download the 10 News and weather apps.
We have personalized forecasts, live radar, and alerts when there's inconvenient weather near you.
Hey, I'm Magdala Lusant here at Smith Mountain Lake. In about 7 minutes, I'm going to tell you why AEP has its eyes on the lake. And if you plan on being on the lake this weekend, there's some things you might need to have on your boat if you want to stay out of trouble.
Breaking news tonight out of Southside. Her husband and 3 others have been arrested for the murder of a Henry County woman. Police have arrested David Morse for first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder. Tana Fitzgerald, Colin Russell, and Casey Rogers have also been charged with first-degree murder. As we've reported, Pamela Morse was found shot and killed in her home last week. This is a developing story. We are working for you to get more details. Get the latest information on air and online at WSLS.com.
Today, Virginia sees its highest number of confirmed coronavirus cases ever, more than 1,200 in just one day, but only 13 of those are in our viewing area. These are the top 5 local regions with the highest confirmed cases, and you can find the full breakdown on our website. Just log on to WSLS.com.
And you're looking at a live picture from our Roanoke-Blacksburg Airport sky cam. Not a whole lot of visibility, lots of clouds, and it's awfully wet in Roanoke. We have seen anywhere between 7 and 10.5 inches of rain across the Roanoke Valley. I will let you know when we will see the return of sunshine and when highs will hit the 80s again coming up in your forecast.
All right, if you own property at Smith Mountain Lake, you're going to want to keep a close eye on your dock and your boats.
Heading into Memorial Day weekend, the lake is expected to exceed full pond by 3 feet tomorrow morning. 10 News reporter Magdala Lusant has been working for you to monitor conditions. Magdala, what are you seeing out there?
Well, John and Lindsay, we've received multiple reports from viewers about boats floating away from docks today. And when I spoke with Conservation Police, they tell me they've received multiple phone calls too. AEP wants boat riders to be vigilant this holiday weekend as they'll be monitoring lake levels. The Smith Mountain Reservoir is expected to reach 798 feet, full pond Friday morning.
We just want people to be aware of flooding now, as well as floating debris here in the next couple of days.
Conservation Police don't believe today's high water levels will be an issue over the weekend. Instead, they'll be focused on anything reckless, and that includes operating a boat over the influence of alcohol. Officers will be checking boats for fire extinguishers, registrations, as well as working headlights.
Just make sure that they create a little checklist, like a boat safety checklist. Take 5 minutes before they go out. That ensures that they have everything that they need so they don't have to worry about it once they're actually out there.
AEP says it'll be posting its information on Facebook to keep property owners in the loop. Live in Smith Mountain Lake on the Franklin County side, I'm Magdala Lusant, 10 News, working for you.
Your local weather authority, always watching and tracking for you from the JES Weather Center.
You're looking at a live picture from Carvin's Cove in Roanoke County as the water just continues to flow over the dam. This is purely precautionary, but this is as high as it's been since the flood of '85, as Shane has been telling us throughout the course of our newscast. It almost looks like Niagara Falls. And from his live shots that you could see earlier this evening, the mist coming off of that dam is just incredible. It's been almost like made of the mist type conditions out across that area of Carvin's Cove. I want to show you this because this has actually just been updated. The current level now of the New River at Radford is 20.8 feet. It's forecast now to crest at 22.5 feet here as we head late tonight. So again, for the New River at Radford, current level 20.8 feet. Major flood stage is 20 feet. Now expected to crest at 22.5 feet. So we've got major flooding forecast along the Roanoke River at Roanoke, for the New River at Radford, moderate flooding forecast for the Dan River at Danville, also for the Dan River at South Boston. Those are expected to crest anywhere between Friday morning and Saturday morning. Other river levels are keeping a close eye on the New River at Galax, which has crested. Also keeping an eye on the New River at Glenlyn, where moderate flooding is going on right now, expected to crest Friday morning. Also keeping an eye on the James River at Buchanan, Roanoke River at Alta Vista, Brookneal, and also in Randolph. You'll notice all this rain moving to the north-northwest at a clip of around 30 miles per hour. We do have some heavier downpours being reported out across parts of Pennsylvania and Henry counties, areas in and around Ridgeway seeing some pretty heavy rain. Martinsville Speedway starting to pick up on some light to moderate rain. Your rain in Martinsville will gather momentum and intensity over the next 30 minutes or so. I want to show you this graphic because when you look at how much rain we got in Roanoke from Florence and Michael, together it adds up to 6.11 inches. Already in Roanoke, we've seen well over 8 inches of rain, so this week's rain exceeds both of those storms combined that impacted the Roanoke Valley. Now, there were other areas that got impacted more from Michael and Florence. I want to make that caveat. But in Roanoke, we have seen more rain from just this one storm system than what we saw from those two tropical systems combined. Future trackers showing that we're going to continue to have rain off and on throughout the course of the evening, even into the overnight. But look at tomorrow morning. We are going to get a break from the rain for a little while. Maybe even some breaks of sunshine. but scattered showers and thunderstorms will redevelop for us here as we head late tomorrow afternoon into the evening, with the rain likely tapering off by midnight Friday night. Fog is also around. It is a very foggy go of it from Hot Springs south towards Martinsville, right along that 220 corridor. Just a lot of dense fog. Visibility is not great towards other parts of Southside and into the areas in and around Lynchburg as well. Pollen levels today very low. Pollen levels tomorrow very low. Then when we start to see more sunshine and dry things out a bit by the holiday weekend, those pollen levels will increase. Temperatures stand for us right now, 50s and lower 60s. The warm spots being Danville and South Boston, both at 62. Certainly some flooding concerns as we head into the overnight tonight, with overnight lows mainly in the 50s. For the day tomorrow, going to have maybe a few showers early, then scattered showers and thunderstorms will develop later on. We are going to be warmer with high temperatures mainly in the 70s. We're in the lower 80s on Saturday, mid to upper 70s Sunday and Monday, around 80 Tuesday through Thursday. Just a few mountain thunder showers Saturday and Sunday. For the most part, we're dry on Monday, with perhaps a better chance for some scattered thunder showers once again by Wednesday and Thursday of next week.
Coming up tonight on 10 News at 7, unemployment claims take a frightening dip in the U.S. Why experts believe a vast number of people may not get their jobs back. That and more coming up tonight at 7.
Ever wonder what the cost would be if we lost the college football season? And the latest, greatest NASCAR feud, of course it involves Rowdy. Sports is next. The numbers are staggering. If the college football season is scuttled, the potential loss estimated at $4 billion. Patrick Risch, the director of the sports business program at Washington University in St. Louis, has completed a study which concludes if the season was canceled entirely, the 65 schools that make up the Power 5 conferences, Big 10, Pac-12, Big 12, SEC, and ACC, would lose more than $4 billion, averaging out to $62 million in losses for each school. A number of major universities have already been forced to cut programs ranging from baseball to lacrosse to tennis. But on a positive note, the NCAA voted yesterday to allow voluntary workouts for football and other sports starting June 1st. Another NASCAR race, another win for the Commonwealth kid Denny Hamlin at Darlington last night, and another driver leaving angry at the black hat of this generation, at least, Mr. Kyle Busch. Late race action last night. Kyle Busch, running third, attempts to swing back in line behind Chase Elliott in the 9, who was obviously one of the leaders. Turned out to be the last green flag lap of the race as Rowdy wrecked Chase. Caution comes out. Chase promptly gave Kyle the "you are number one" salute on the way by. The rains came again, giving Hamlin the win. Kyle finishes second. And the race, well, Alan Gustafson confronted Kyle, and the two had a heated exchange. But Kyle maintained the wreck wasn't intentional.
Just made a mistake and misjudged the gap and sent him into the wall, and that was entirely unintentional. But, yeah, I mean, I'll definitely reach out to him and, you know, tell him I'm sorry, tell him I hate it that it happened and all I can do, but that doesn't change the outcome of the night.
You know, Kyle was on the bottom and he had a hole big, you know, between myself and Chase, and I'm sure he had one eye in the mirror and glanced forward, and it looked to me like he just completely misjudged and got the 9.
Indeed he did. The postponed Xfinity race, rescheduled for noon today, finally finished up after a 4.5-hour delay. Chase Briscoe holds off Kyle Busch in a frantic finish. The checkers out just minutes ago. Back to you.
Thank you. Happy NBC Nightly News next.
And we'll see you back here at 7.